Let us talk about this full moon in Gemini that is going to happen on December the 18th at 8:35 p.m. Pacific time. So December the 18th, 8:35 p.m. Pacific time. It's a full moon in Gemini. I want to talk briefly about full moons in general. I want to then move quickly into the place of this full moon in Gemini amongst the astrology of where we're at currently. I want to talk about the aspects that this full moon makes. I want to talk about the aspects that it is encoding, where these are aspects that are not made to the full moon, but are other aspects that are happening astrologically that's encoding. And then I want to talk about the rulership of this full moon. So a full moon for me brings visibility to something. Now, the visibility can be challenging or the visibility can be positive. On the positive, if you think about the disk of the moon becoming full, longtime subscribers to this channel will, I'm going to be done with this general description quickly for longtime subscribers because some of it you've heard, but I don't know that I've ever said that quite so succinctly before, that a full moon for me denotes visibility, whether challenging or positive. On the positive side, it can mean offers or opportunities, or somehow you are thrust into the limelight. And, it could be thrust into the limelight relatively briefly for about a week or so, where there's a certain amount of publicity about what you're doing or something that you have done in the past or something that you're up to gains a lot of currency in social media. It is in Gemini. So communications and social media and technology could be one way in which fame or notoriety is achieved for a brief period of time where the wave kind of crests. On the more challenging side, it could mean visibility to an emotional truth or an emotional reality. It can mean that either in yourself or in others, something bubbles up. I like to think of it like a pot of milk that has been on the heat that bubbles over, where emotional truths and intuitive truths come to the surface that may have been hidden or not fully expressed. So either you're on the receiving end of a tantrum, or you're witnessing a tantrum, or you are undergoing some sort of a tantrum. I'll use that word, emotional peaking, about something. And it's worth looking at what that is, because it often has the quality of something truthful, or if that's not the word we want to use, something that has an impact, an emotional impact, an intuitive impact that is coming to the surface. And as much as we like to believe that we are rational creatures, we are really emotional creatures. And so a lot of our decision making and a lot of our actions are driven by our emotional life as opposed to our rational life. So I leave that there. Now, it is in the sign of Gemini. So wherever Gemini sits in your chart, whatever house it occupies, what house that stands for, the moon is already in Gemini as I record this. So, it could be that something there gets highlighted. And it could be that this has already been building for a while, but it could be that you're already sensing that if you know where Gemini sits in your chart, you may already have a bit of a sense as to where it is that something is escalating, or might be coming to light, or might be on the receiving end of some sort of emotionally truthful, emotionally expressive meltdown, or where there might actually be some sort of an offer or something on the table. So we'll take that one step at a time. The place of this full moon, it is a full moon in and of itself. So 48 to 72 hours before the full moon and up to 48 hours after the full moon, something in the sign of Gemini, where it sits in your chart, what that house stands for, may crest. The sign of Gemini itself stands for our connection with our immediate community, our neighborhood, our siblings, our relatives. Depending on where the sign of Gemini sits, it could be our colleagues. Who comprises your day-to-day neighborhood, or what I like to call the well we live in? Your commute. It could be wherever you go get a cup of coffee every day on your drive to work. Cars, vehicles, communication, transactions, resumes, sales, interviews, talks, TED Talks, technology, social media, what I'm doing right now, cognition, speech, learning, listening, depending on where Gemini sits, but even just broadly, the emotional peaking may have a highly communicative quality. Where does this full moon sit from an overall astrological perspective? Well, prior to the new moon solar eclipse in Sagittarius on December 3rd or 4th, wherever you were, about 2 weeks ago, the solar eclipse prior to that on June the 10th was in the sign of Gemini. And so this is, if that was a new moon, also solar eclipse in Gemini on June the 10th, this is the corresponding full moon. It happens not to be an eclipse, but it is still closing out energies, eclipse energies that made their presence felt and that have been gathering a certain amount of momentum since then. Okay. I'm just thinking about how to sort of organize my thoughts on what it is that I'm about to say. Okay, because it's not complicated, it's just a lot of information. We had a full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus around November the 19th, okay? It was the first of the Taurus-Scorpio eclipses, so first of a new set of eclipses. And between September 19th and November 19th may have ushered in a new portal or new set of energies, where we are going, new energies, okay? The old eclipse cycle, Gemini Sagittarius, this is a full moon in Gemini. The solar eclipse, its closing down, was the June 9th solar eclipse in Gemini, a set of the old set of energies that we're meant to deal with. A lot of the second half of 2021 has been retiring and putting to bed and drawing boundaries around an old set of energies in order to be able to move forward and welcome a new set of energies. This full moon, insofar as it is a full moon in Gemini, is closing out or bringing visibility to, in a way that allows you to move forward with closing out, actions related to old sets of energies. Now, the old set of energy closure has to do with the eclipse on June the 10th. The fact that this is a full moon could mean, because it's going to operate both as a full moon but also as a closure to the June 10th eclipse, it could also mean that there are offers and other things related to where Gemini sits in your chart that are brought up to consider, or that peak, okay? But it will help you, I think, thematically, if you know where Gemini sits in your chart and what house it occupies, to think of this as somehow trying to bring closure and visibility, closure through visibility, to energies that have been brewing in the Gemini part of your chart, and specifically the house that Gemini sits in, what that house stands for that's where things have needed, one of the areas where things have needed to be closed out. The closing out energies continue also with the last solar eclipse in Sagittarius on December the 4th, so February 4th. And indeed, the first 6 months of 2022 continue this closing out theme. But I'm going to say this closing out theme has 3 deadlines. One is this full moon in Gemini. Second is the 2-month anniversary. It's not really an anniversary. 2 months after the solar eclipse on December the 3rd, which would be February the 3rd, with February the 4th, the week before, week after. And then I would say the next lunar eclipse, which will be in the sign of Scorpio, I believe, in May. So those are 3 dates where older energies continue to move towards some sort of completion, while the newer set of energies which have made their intuitive presence felt, and not just intuitive, but even in terms of activity, continue to grow. These new set of energies, as identified by the Taurus lunar eclipse on November the 19th, are going to go through a sort of birth canal period starting December the 19th, when Venus goes retrograde, into February and even March. Venus goes retrograde on December the 19th and goes direct on January 29th, 2022. Mercury goes retrograde January 14th, 2022 and goes direct on February the 4th, 2022. So by the end week of the first week of February, again, we're talking about February 4th, week before, week after, we'll be through a sort of birth canal to emerge into these newer set of energies with even greater presence in February and March. Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde is going to be my next video. So wait for that and I'll talk about that. But insofar as we're talking about where this full moon sits in the astrological placement of things, not only is it closure to the June 10th solar eclipse from earlier in 2021, June the 10th, but it is also a closure that leads directly the next day to Venus going retrograde. And in Capricorn, a sign that plays an important role with this full moon, and I'll explain why in a second. Venus goes retrograde and starts this birth canal that's going to help us continue to move forward into this new set of energies in Taurus with the Taurus eclipse. I hope you're with me. Bottom line, old set of energies, new set of energies. New set of energies being announced between September 19th, November 19th. Birth canal starting December 19th. And by the time we're in February, March, it will make its presence felt. The December 18th full moon, which is what this video is about, attempting to bring closure to the solar eclipse that started June the 10th. If you know where Gemini sits in your house, in your chart, what house it sits in, what that house stands for, this will be that much more resonant, that much more helpful. And the closure of the old set of energies continues into February and indeed till the next full moon solar eclipse into Scorpio in decreasing intensity. This full moon attempts to bring a certain amount of closure through exposure. That rhymed, closure through exposure, closure through visibility. This is a great segue right into the aspect, the one major aspect that is so lauded, that is being greeted with so much cheer in the astrological community with this full moon in Gemini, which is that it is trining, which is a supportive, harmonious aspect, Jupiter in Aquarius. Jupiter is considered the most fortunate, auspicious planet astrologically, and to me, it is creating an ending of a 12-year cycle and the start of a 12-year cycle in the sign of Aquarius. Where does Aquarius sit in your chart? What house does it occupy and what does that house stand for? An end of a 12-year cycle and the start of a 12-year cycle there, okay, in 2021. Jupiter's auspiciousness, inaugurative quality, sometimes can be, and people who had readings with me will know that I have said this and I experience it, can sometimes have a slightly counterintuitive quality insofar as it actually creates an ending in order to create a new beginning. It creates a lucky break. But a lucky break, not only, that term not only includes the word lucky, it also includes the word break. And break can mean both. I mean break both in the terms of an auspicious chance or opportunity that you can take, but also a lucky break from something. Ending a cycle, starting a cycle. And that theme, that kind of things coming to some sort of visibility so that you can figure out, in a sense, what moves forward with you and what needs to remain behind, might really be resonant at the time of this full moon, because we're closing out the Gemini solar eclipse. We're closing out the Gemini solar eclipse energies. Now, as I said, there could be offers, there could be opportunities, there could be a certain cresting that occurs during this time that is positive. There could be positive line. It's still a full moon. Some of those full moon activities work, but understanding where this full moon sits in the astrology of the time will also prove helpful. As you think about this full moon and as you experience it, you don't have to take immediate action, although something tells me that you will be taking some sort of action or be involved in some sort of action over the next 3, 4, 5 days. But if you know where Gemini sits in your chart, what house it occupies, what it stands for, you'll already have a sense of where things are peaking. All you have to do is pay attention to where it is that offers and completions come. And all you have to pay attention to is where is there an emotional rub and where does it feel like something is coming to a head. Okay, just pay attention to that for now. Also, wherever Gemini sits in your chart, what house it occupies, what that stands for, meditate on and think about what there needs to come to a close or come to a resolution. Okay, and it may have this quality of a lucky break somehow being supported. And if you know where Aquarius sits in your chart and what house that occupies and what that house stands for, sorry I say that all the time, but it's the only way I can communicate what I'm trying to communicate, you'll see the link and the strength there. And there is something about what or who is in the boat with you moving forward and what or who is not in a certain, there's that quality, that idea of a lucky break, and break being both an opportunity but also a break, is very operative with this full moon. It's lovely to have Jupiter support, but Jupiter has this way of closing doors to open doors, removing an old couch to let an new couch in. The new door and the new couch will have Jupiter's blessing, which is lovely and will ideally be aligned with where it is that you want to go. Hopefully you'll have the courage to go in that direction. But Jupiter also has a tendency to identify what is past its prime and what is over. And, where is it that you're riding a dead horse and it finally has a tendency to sweep the dead horse away? And we don't always get off dead horses very comfortably. So Jupiter transits are not always as emotionally acceptable as they are desirable. They're not as easily emotionally integrated as they are freeing. Okay? I'm going to let you sit with that as you experience this full moon. Now, other transits that are going on during this full moon. Lovely transits. Those of you who've been watching my channel have heard me say repeatedly that all the lunations until this Gemini lunation on the 18th were stressful and hard. This Gemini full moon has a couple of hard aspects around it as well, but so many of the aspects are supportive and positive, and particularly, even though it's a full moon of closing out old energies, supporting the new energies. Specifically, we have Mercury in Capricorn, where Venus is, where Venus goes retrograde to create the birth canal related to the November 19th eclipse to manifest by February, March. We have Mercury in Capricorn, trining Uranus in Taurus, where the November 19th eclipse happened. We have also the North Node, which is going to change signs very, very shortly into Taurus, trining Pluto in Capricorn. These are two transits that are at the time when the birth canal is going to, that are pushing us through, helping us push through into that birth canal. Powerful transits. Mercury, planet of communication, the ruler of this full moon. Pluto, planet of transformation. The North Node, where it is you're supposed to go. The word related to this full moon, even though I'm not going to call it that, is change. It's really, it's at that fulcrum of change. Nowhere do we now feel that labor pains, push into the new. But that means also something needs to become visible or clear or close out. You get the drift. Mars trining Chiron. Actions needed to be taken to promote healing in a certain sector. I'm not going to dwell a lot on that right now, but I'm more intrigued. It's important because Chiron is stationary, but I'm going to let those of you who are astrology aficionados figure out where Sagittarius is in your chart, where Mars is, where Aries is in your chart, where Chiron is, to look at. It's too... that transit will require too much energy to interpret right now. But it's another trine. So again, supporting change. Again, has a kind of a healing birth canal kind of feeling. Now, when it comes to the challenging transits, we are dealing with Saturn squaring Uranus. Well, there's one more thing I want to mention. The North Node, as it enters into Taurus, not only trines Pluto, but is also almost trining Venus. Almost trining Venus, just as Venus starts getting ready to go retrograde. The North Node is moving into Taurus. Venus is in Capricorn. It's going to trine Venus, but then Venus goes retrograde and the trine expands. At some point after Venus goes direct and moves out of Capricorn, she will finally trine the North Node in Taurus. But again, you have this, the astrology couldn't be clearer about this birth canal we're about to enter. Number one square, Saturn square Uranus on December the 25th for the third and final time. Patterns, behaviors, boundaries that have not been serving us, that are the path of least resistance, that we need to step up into, that are going to free us to move forward into the sign of Taurus, where the eclipses are and where Uranus is, and where we're going to experience a certain amount of quantum leaps of growth or liberation. Okay, I have done videos on Saturn square Uranus. I'll link to some of them at the end of one of them at the end of this video, and that's a separate transit, but it's a critically important transit for this full moon. And Jupiter squaring the nodes, this new beginning, and the eclipse on the 19th going hand in hand. You know, they're traveling at about the same speed right now, so they need each other's cooperation and partnership. Jupiter's ending a 12-year cycle and starting a 12-year cycle needs the nodes, and us leading into the sign of Taurus and us leading into the sign of Taurus needs Aquarian partnership. Again, all of these are big transits. You know, I can't go into each one of them in this video, or we'll be here for 2 hours. But you get the sense, you get the idea. There is a sense of excitement in the air, a sense of completion, a sense of closure, a sense of getting into a birth canal. Completion, closure, getting into a birth canal. Some positive, transformative, opportunity-laden transits that are coming on the heels of some sort of emotional peaking for those people who are going to experience this in some sort of a stressful way. Try and recognize whether the horse is dead or alive, and know and understand one thing, that with Venus going retrograde, things might be financially tight for 6 weeks, starting December 19th. 6 to 8 weeks around that time. So manage accordingly. You may find yourself in the middle of a transformation, and you might find that the financial flow is not quite there to support it. For some people, you will embrace the transformation and embrace the belt tightening that you will have to do. And for others, you may try to find a way to work with both those energies hand in hand somehow. I don't know what that means to you. You could be on the brink of getting a job, but the pay doesn't come in just yet, or about to get a raise. Something about the financial flow not quite being in sync, but almost necessary. It's part of that birth canal feeling, okay? So being conservative with finances would not be a bad thing right now. Relationships going through a review also. A separate video, Venus retrograde, we'll talk about that. Mercury rules this full moon. Mercury is in Capricorn. Venus is in Capricorn. Pluto's in Capricorn. They're supporting the Taurus eclipse on November 19th. Capricorn ruled by Saturn. Saturn is in Uranus. Saturn is the ruler of Uranus. Saturn is in Aquarius. Saturn is one of the rulers of Aquarius. Uranus is the other ruler of Aquarius. Uranus is in Taurus, ruled by Venus. Venus is in Capricorn, ruled by Saturn. Saturn is one of the dispositors of this chart. Uranus and Venus are other dispositors of this chart. Saturn square Uranus, the theme of 2021. Boundaries, not going into the path of least resistance, learning lessons wherever Aquarius is in your chart, what house it occupies, what it stands for, freeing you where Taurus is, where the eclipses are moving into, okay? But above all, with all of that information in this video, we're going to come back to completion leading into birth canal. And so a certain amount of excitement, but also a certain amount of needing to know what horse is dead so you can get off of it. And if it's a little uncomfortable for 6 weeks, either make that discomfort work with you and works hand in hand with that, or else just be prepared to watch your wallet. And we'll be out of this birth canal by February, March. Okay? More on that in another video. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Click the bell icon when you subscribe so you're notified when I do new videos, and I'm going to leave it at this. Okay? See you guys soon.